This is a Blairing Out with Eric Blair show coming to you from Comics, Tunes, and Toys in beautiful Tustin, California, with former My Chemical Romance guitarist and solo artist Frank Iero on the show. How you doing today, Frank? I'm good. How do you feel about the title Emo Icon?
I don't know. What does that mean?
Exactly.
Emotional icon? I know that sounds troubling. I don't know. That sounds like a lot to deal with. An emotional icon.
Some people considered My Chemical Romance and some of the other music that you do to be emo, and so they consider you guys emo icons,
okay,
or legends of emo.
It's it's crazy. It's one of those things where I've been touring and in bands for a long time. I've been touring for 20 years. I've been in bands since I was like 11 years old. So I guess it's all more often I've seen magazine covers with like classic artists and like My Chem's on it, and then like the next month I'll be on the cover for like modern artists because like I put a record out. It's a very weird position to be in, but also I'm from the East Coast, so I don't know how to take compliments. So I don't know how that makes me feel. It's weird. I just like to play music.
What was your youth like growing up in Belleville, New Jersey?
Mild mannered. You know what I mean? My dad was a musician. My dad's a drummer. My grandfather was a drummer. Music was just always a part of my life. My parents split up when I was 3. They divorced when I was like 7. So I lived at home with my mom in Belleville, and then on the weekends I would go see my dad down in Trenton, which was like an hour and a half drive. And so we would listen to music on the way down, and we'd listen to Howard Stern on the way down, and then on the way back we'd listen to like old radio shows and stuff like that. But while I was there, my dad had gigs on the weekend, so I would either go see him, and if it was a place that he didn't think my mom would approve of him bringing me to, I would go see my grandfather play, who played at the Speakeasy restaurant called the Marrow Inn. And so I just had this it was weird. Like I would go to school, and I was a normal kid during the week, but I had this alternate lifestyle on the weekends where I would hang out with like jazz musicians and blues guys, and and it was amazing to have those experiences, like to see into that world. It felt like a secret society, and that's all I ever wanted, was to be a part of that.
What impact did that have on you, attending all those gigs with your grandfather and your father?
I think it just fueled that fire. I remember sitting at the breakfast table or whatever, and them having these huge date books, like wrapped in like huge rubber bands and stuff like that, and just like papers shoved in there, and they would be discussing like what places they were playing or who they were playing with, and it was just like, again, getting to see behind the curtain, into this secret world. And that's all I ever wanted to do was to be in a band, to write songs and to tour and play shows. Some people want to play, be baseball players or firemen or I don't know, whatever. I was like, no, I want to be a musician. I want to be in a band.
So how did your early school years shape you into the person you are today?
I don't know. I mean, I was a pretty good student, but I always knew that it wasn't something that I wasn't learning the things that I wanted to be when I grew up. I knew I needed education and things of that nature. I wanted to be educated, but I didn't feel like, there was a class or a course that I could take that was going to show me how to be, in a band or a better musician. And that was troubling. I went to Catholic schools. I went to a Catholic grammar school and high school. And it was good. I mean, it kept me out of trouble. I think I probably could have gotten into a lot more. I searched out some, but I could have gotten into a lot more if maybe I was in a different place. But it showed me a lot of different walks of life and stuff like that. I wish there was more of an education based in the creative side, though. I tried to start a music course in my high school, and we ended up with this one teacher. His name was Mr. Maizano. He was very supportive of that, and together we got funding to start an after school program. To do a music club where we learned about some stuff. But it was one of those things where I still had this hunger to learn more. And, it was, I don't know. I wish I had more, I guess. Yeah.
So in high school, did you view music as a gig, a job, or an escape?
I think it honestly, it was none of the above. For me, music was always just like breathing, you know. It was something I had to do. You know, I'd have rehearsals at least once a week, you know, try to do two nights a week, but like no one was as serious as I was. You know, like the people I was in bands with in high school, like they didn't care that much. They thought it was cool to be in a band, but like it wasn't like, you know, like do or die. Like I would have done anything, you know. And then we started to get gigs, and I started to play shows at 13, and it's funny, up until last year, like I think like 2017, I took a little time off. And I ended up writing this last record, and I had gone a year and 2 months without playing a show, and that's the longest I'd ever gone since I played my first show at 13. So that was like really a mind fuck to go through that.
Where did you find your self-confidence during your teenage years?
Oh man, that's a hard one. You know, I think self-confidence is. I don't know if I've ever cracked that. You know. I think you have to come to this realization, though, that the thing that you want, the thing that you want to obtain and where you want to be is worth more than the embarrassment, you know, of putting yourself out there. So, it's kind of this thing where you put yourself in scary situations, maybe not so much that you consciously believe in yourself, but because you want it so bad it doesn't matter, you know? I think that's what it was. I think I just had such a desire to do this, and I would have done anything to do it. That was it. It was like, I'm gonna get up in front of these people. I'm gonna make a fool of myself. I don't care. It's all I ever wanted. Like that's my dream.
Do you think your past successes have emboldened you to have an abundance of self-confidence?
I don't think so. Experience helps, you know, with navigating certain situations or gigs or opportunities, but the confidence issue, that's always a hard thing to come by, because you know no two gigs are exactly the same. Like no two people are exactly the same. You know, you can't tell the future. Just because you've played 1,000 shows before doesn't mean that 1,001 show isn't going to be something unique and scary. But I have found that I work best when I'm scared shitless and I'm kind of out of my comfort zone. You know, when you push yourself beyond what you think you're capable of, that's where you really find the wonderful things. You know, I don't think that we would have all these wonderful art and inspirations around us if people just stayed in their comfort zones and just did what they thought they could do. You know, we need to be pushed, and we need to be kind of floundering and try to figure it out on our by the seam of our pants kind of thing.
You know, they say a drowning man will grab anything he can grab a hold of. Do you ever feel like that drowning man?
Always. That's my entire life. Yeah. Here's the thing. I think the beauty though is that the creators, the ones that make it, or the ones that are good at what they do, are the ones that use those shortcomings and figure out a way to make them their strengths. I've very often come up against a brick wall and been like, I don't know how to do this, and that's kind of amazing because no one else can figure it out the way that I can figure it out. You know, that brings out what's so unique about every one of us. You know. Not just because you have the knowledge to do this or that. Like, the first solo record I did, like I had no idea how to make a solo record. I just had a program and I figured it out. And some of it sounds like shit, but some of it sounds really good. and it's one of those things where I just made it work. You know, how bad do you want it?
What was it like juggling Rutgers University and being the guitarist and lead vocalist for Pensy Prep?
It wasn't hard because as much as to my family's chagrin, like I didn't care that much about school. Like I was there, and I knew it was a wonderful opportunity. I would have been like the first in our family line to graduate college and all of that, and it was very important to them, but it wasn't that important to me. What was important to me was making my dream work and come true. So if it came down to like, oh, you have a final or you have a show, even if that show was like, in, I don't know, like bumfuck somewhere and like selling tickets, opening for nobody, I would take the show. those weren't the best decisions, but they were the right decisions for me, you know? So I didn't feel like I was juggling anything. I just felt like I was kind of waiting in this purgatory, waiting for, you know, my chance, you know, waiting for opportunity to kind of knock on that door.
From what I understand, you got a scholarship to go to Rutgers.
I did.
That means that you're a very intelligent man.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Yeah, I did. Here's the thing. Having that scholarship allowed me to take these liberties. You know, it's not like I was spending my family's money that we didn't have a lot of, you know, to send me to this school, and I was not caring about it. So, like, I think that also, like, things happen for a reason, you know. If my parents and my family were, you know, like, saving every dime to put me through school, I probably would have I would have taken it more seriously, and I would have passed up opportunities that would have emerged in the music side. But the fact that I was there on a scholarship and I wasn't really paying to be there, it didn't really mean that much to me.
Now, when Pensy Prep got a record deal with Eyeball Records, were you happy?
Oh, God, yeah.
Was Pensy Prep everything you wanted to be at that moment?
No, I mean, yes and no. It was the dream, being in a band with your friends, writing songs in your basement, getting signed to a label, and having someone put your record out. Like, that was huge. But as far as, like, do I listen to that record and be like, this is, you know, the end all be all, this was my vision? No. But it was everything at that moment. And so I still feel very fortunate to have those experiences. Even with it being a record that I'm not, like, incredibly proud of or whatever, I made it with my friends, and I would have done anything to carry that torch, and you know, I would have left school immediately if they, you know, to go on tour, and I did. Like that, you know, that was my first touring experience, and it was everything. Yeah, I gave everything for that band.
What was your relationship like with Gerard and Mikey Way pre-joining My Chemical Romance?
You know, we met at a party at the Eyeball House. I don't know how they knew Alex and the Eyeball family. You know, that I still don't really know that. I think they were just kind of like, you know, in the scene, like going to shows and stuff like that. I think, you know, maybe Mikey was more friends with everybody, and then it was like, oh, everybody like knew Gerard through Mikey. And then I think, you know, everybody was like, oh yeah, Gerard's like a really good artist, and so he started drawing designs for the bands on Eyeball. He did some designs for Pensy Prep. I know he did some for Thursday as well. And then I remember being at a party, you know, months after like knowing them for a while, and then being like, we think we want to start a band. And it was like, oh, that's awesome. Like, you should, you know. And I remember having conversations about who they were going to recruit for the band and stuff like that. And I had a Lockout practice studio that Pensy recorded in, and those things were very coveted. You know, like, you go in there at any time, like 24/7. You had a key, and you could make noise, and it was great. You know what I mean? And so I said, like, you know, like, well, if you get the band together, we'll share this room. You know, you pay a little bit of money for the rent, and we'll work on each other's equipment and all that stuff and hang out. And it was just an excuse to, like, get together and party and make noise. You know, but it wasn't like I had known them for extremely long, or, you know, we had like a lot of history together or anything like that. Like, we were in the same town, but we never met up until signing to Eyeball.
How do you think you matured musically, mentally, and emotionally during the period between the release of I Brought You My Bullets, You Brought Me Your Love, and the platinum success of 3 Cheers for Sweet Revenge?
Wow. Here's the thing, like, a lot of living happened in between those records. So, and also too, like, you know, as a band, we grew together. You know, we became better friends. Like, that was the thing. Like, when I joined My Chem, we were acquaintances. I didn't really know them that well at all. I knew Mikey and G better than I knew Ray and Matt at that time. It was scary because I'd never, you know, that, again, being put out of your comfort zone, like playing with people that were, you know, strangers. They played in a different style, and but again, Matt, or Otter as we called him, Otter and Ray, they had been in a band for years together. They were in a band called the Rodneys early on, so they'd played together for a really long time, and they had like this really great relationship where they knew where each other were going to go before, you know, they even played it, and that was that was like another thing. I was like, oh man, all right, so like I gotta, like, the learning curve here is real big. You know, I need to get into this band and really, like, you know, get my chops up, because, you know, Ray was fantastic. I mean, he's a genius and was always better than anybody I've ever met. So it was like one of those things like, all right, he's really good and they really know what they're doing. What do I bring? And I got to write with them for Bullets, and but a lot of that stuff had been, you know, worked on. You know, so I was in the band maybe 2 months before I recorded with them for the first record. And then, you know, so that came out 2001, 2002, 2004. Like, then we had 2 years to, like, tour and write together. And I think that's where, you know, you start to see the personalities start to emerge, and what everybody kind of brings to that band. And, you know, that was like the first time any of us, of course, I mean, like, it's a major label. Like, we signed to a label. We were in this giant recording studio. None of us had ever done that before. I mean, it was like, you know, you record it like in your friend's basement, you know, or somebody's attic or something like that. We're in an actual studio. There's an actual producer involved. There's a label involved. It was like, I mean, to keep your head on straight with something like that, like that's a hard feat, you know. And I think that you know, we kept each other sane. Like, we kept each other in this bubble, and we looked out for one another, and that's what bands are. It's really kind of crazy to think about the relationship and the psyche of a band, you know, because it's not like a family. It's not just like a business. It's not like a marriage, but it's got this thing about it. It's like, you know, no one is more important than this band. No one on the peripheral is more important than these, you know, 4 or 5 strangers that have come together, and then eventually you all grow and change, and you have, you know, families of your own and stuff like that, and then all of a sudden people start to become more important. And it's a very strange relationship. So early on, though, you know, you're these young individuals, you're experiencing, you know, your dreams coming true, and also at the same time some of your nightmares. You know, so as far as maturity, you have to grow up really, really quick and realize what's important and what's just shimmery bullshit. You know?
Do you think that the platinum success of Three Cheers for Sweet Revenge changed you, or are you the same person?
I mean, no, you know, the platinum, or it doesn't matter, because if you think about it now, like, what does that even mean? You know, like, bands these days, like,
but those were still the golden years.
That was still the golden year. Yeah, like, you could sell records, and that's crazy. Now, though, I mean, that shit's unobtainable. I mean, you know, certain genres can still do that, but, like, for a rock band, like, it's crazy. You know, but, you know, who cares? You know, there's still bands that are doing it, and it's about, for us, it was always just about, like, are the shows getting better? Like, are there more kids? Like, there's more kids here. Yeah. You know what I mean? And you know, if you want to put that in terms of record sales, or you want to put that in terms of streaming, or whatever the fuck, you know, it matters how many people you're reaching and how many people you're playing to. That was always important to us. You know, how many people are we speaking to, and what are we saying, and are they really getting it? Like, that was the important thing.
What was the excitement level during the writing process for the Black Parade for you?
It was exciting, but it was also, that was a heavy time. You know, there was a lot of pressure, mostly self-inflicted, you know, and I think we put ourselves under a microscope. You know, we knew that it had to be perfect, because what we were setting out to accomplish was, it was insane. You know, the scope of that record and the scope of the story we were telling. I think that it was one of those things that was above our pay grade, you know, above our ability level, but we pushed each other to get there. And I don't think that record could have been made with, you know, one deviation from the people that were in that room. It was a very special moment, and you know, I feel very fortunate to have been a part of it. There's outside pressures of, like, you know, like, you have like a success or whatever. Sometimes you think, like, oh no, you get success and then it's easy. It's like, no, the pressure really comes after you've had a success, you know, and then to sustain that, you know, people want you to be like, well, now what, you know, now you're gonna fail, and you're like, All right. Whatever.
It was purely about the art for you guys, wasn't it?
Yeah, that was the thing. But we knew that in order for us to be able to create what we wanted to create, we needed to satiate the others. So it was like, all right, well, if we keep them happy, we can still do what we want to do. You know what I mean? So how do you do that? How do you, get them off your back so you can really make the art that you want to make? And, I think that honestly, having, people like, Stacey Fass around us, that was been our lawyer from the beginning, Matt Galley, Jeff Meal, Carmen Romano, like all these people like behind the scenes that get zero credit, Brian Schechter, those people really helped us navigate and protected us when we needed to be protected. And Lauren Valencia, she came later on, but she was very, very integral.
Is Frank Iero a perfectionist?
Yes and no. I say that because I don't believe in perfection. I kind of hate it. I like things to be perfectly imperfect. So in looking for that, I become a perfectionist. I look for things that are broken in the right way. So it's kind of weird. But I'm the only one that can see why, like where it should be broken and why. Yeah, it's weird.
What is your secret to dealing with anxiety?
It's a beast, man, because you never know when it's going to happen. And it's one of those things where you're like the minute you're like, oh, I'm having a good day today. I'm not going to like that. And then you're like, oh, are you having a good day? Are you sure you're having a good day? Why do you think you're having a good day? Maybe you shouldn't have a good day. And it's like, shut the fuck up. Yeah. So it's one of those things where you never know what's going to attack. And it's your own worst enemy. I think having a wonderful support system at home is the biggest help. Finding the right medications is integral as well. I know that speaking to people has helped a lot of my friends. I have not found the right person to speak to. I wish I could. I don't know why I can't, but I try. I think it's trying not to stay silent about it. I think we spend so much time and energy trying to hide our true feelings and emotions, and the fact is, like, we're all fucked up and we're all scared. So why are we trying to pretend that we're not and we're perfect? Like, we're not doing anybody any justice doing that. It's crazy.
In society, and I've heard you say this, a lot of people want that fantasy. They don't want the reality. And when somebody like you or their best friend suddenly reveals a side of themselves which isn't that fantasy, it's like, look, I don't want to hear that. I don't want to deal with it. I want to keep living in my fantasy.
I think so. It's strange, though, because there's like a very fine line between wanting to keep a mystique. Like people want that mystique, but they also want to know too much. And then when they find out too much, they're like, fuck, that person sucks. You know what I mean? It's very strange. They chew everything up and spit it out really quickly. But I think that, you're right. They're normalizing being normal is a great thing. I think that's okay to do. I think the idea of chasing some sort of perfection or, I don't know, some sort of fantasy actually that we see online is very detrimental. And also too, like, who wants to be like anybody else? Like, we already have that. Mm-hmm. Like, the only thing we don't have is you. Mm-hmm. And if you're too scared to be it, like, that's a shame. The world loses out. Yeah.
Can you quantify when you're most content?
No, I cannot. I can't. But I have figured out that as much as I thought my creative side and like my normal like real life home side, family side was separate, it's very much intertwined. It's a lot like those tumors that have roots. Like if I'm not satiated creatively, if I don't feel like I'm doing my job and making songs that I really care about and I think or I'm creating something that I think is really, really good, then I'm not the husband or the father I want to be. I'm not the person I want to be. In order to be comfortable and at peace, I need to have both going. Yeah. Once I figure, I'll let you know when I figure that out. It's weird.
The pros and cons of the meteoric success of the Black Parade.
Uh-huh. You want me to list them?
It's probably too long.
It's crazy. Here's the thing. You create something, and then you relinquish that control. you release it out into the world. And I used to think that was it. That was the final step. Was, I made it here. That's not that's just kind of the beginning. Then the next step is releasing it and having people to interpret it and then spit it back at you. And sometimes that takes a long time. It's kind of funny. Sometimes you're not going to like what comes back. It doesn't matter how what best intentions you've had or how pure the vision was. A lot of times, negativity can come back and hate can come back, and that's a hard thing to endure. I think, especially when that hate and negativity affects the people that love what you've made. Does that make sense? I think that that point in our lives, there was this crazy backlash, or I don't even know what you would call it. It was turmoil. We made this thing, people attached to it and loved it, and some people hated the people that attached to it and loved it, and it turned into a very, very strange time for us, and it definitely got out of hand, and I think it scared us, and it made us kind of take a step back and maybe question a lot, but it's again, it's one of those things where our responsibility is only to make things, to create things that we find have value and that are saying something. It's not our I guess responsibility to dictate how everyone in the world sees it, it's that's a hard one. I'm still I don't know if we've ever come to terms with all the pros and cons of that. It's so monumental. It's funny though now, living in this time in the present and seeing how far those ripples went. And now how it's come back, and the audience has grown so immensely, and how there's young kids now finding out about that band and that record, and it's kind of crazy, there's a whole new generation now, taking that record and taking this band in. It's pretty incredible to be a part of it.
How did the pressure to follow up that success affect you guys during the writing and recording for Danger Days, The True Lives of the Fabulous Killjoys?
I don't know. I think, in that time period, we wrote 2 records, and one we decided not to release, and then Danger Days came about, and we, it was a weird time, I don't know. I think it was one of those things where it shook us a bit, but I think those records standalone are really good records. Personally, I think Conventional Weapons might be my favorite record we ever made, and that's the one that didn't come out until after, and it came out in pieces. So, but that, as far as if I go back to nostalgia, listen to any of that stuff, I like the Conventional Weapons stuff the best.
Do you think that after that kind of success that you guys might have taken yourselves too seriously going into record? Because sometimes we can get really precious with our art.
Yeah. I don't know if we took ourselves too seriously, or if it was just questioning what's good enough kind of thing. And sometimes you have to just trust your gut and trust your first instinct, that second guess thing, you can destroy yourself with it. But again, hindsight's 20/20.
Yeah. So how did you move on after My Chemical Romance? How did you pick up the pieces of your life after that?
Well, it wasn't shattered. It's funny. It's kind of funny. We were a band for 12 years, and that's the longest I've ever done anything. And I really thought, like, I'm gonna, maybe I'll do something different. Like, I did the music thing. That's all I ever wanted to do. What else is there? Like, what else can I do? What else would be like a really fun thing for me to do and attempt and try and fail at and try again. But in figuring that out, I just kept writing songs. At that point too, I was touring in another project I had with James DeWeese called Death Spells. And we were writing a record. James was like, "Hey, listen, I need to take a break on this because I'm going to do a Reggie record," which is his other project, Reggie in the Full Effect. And I was like, "Okay." So I started writing songs, and before I know it, like, I played them for Matt Kelly, who was always been my booking agent. He's like, "This is pretty good. Like, you should let me play this for some people." I was like, "All right, whatever." And before I knew it, I had a record deal, and I was on tour again. So My Chem split 2012. I toured with Death Spells, and then 2014 came out with Stomach Aches, and I've been on tour ever since.
Was it cathartic for you to front the band Leathermouth in 2009?
Yeah, definitely. I think that's the thing about just music and bands in general and art in general, is there is a catharsis involved in all of it. But especially like around that time, coming off of the touring of Black Parade, and it just being just so massive, and just the venues were so big, the shows were so big, everything meant so much, that to take it down again, like into like a dirty club and scream your head off in a band like that was just so fun. It was exactly what I needed at the time. You know what I mean? But I feel like the universe has a way of taking care of you. It's one of those things where I fell into that band. Like, a couple of friends were making a record. They didn't have a singer, and I was like, I want to, like, if you don't find a singer, like, I'm gonna write some lyrics, and you're gonna have to let me do it. And they're like, okay. And that's how that worked.
Tell me what inspired the Leathermouth song, "I Am Going to Kill." You can say the full title if you want, but okay. But and I saw you perform this, on YouTube, and man, dude, you're like explosive.
Yeah, it's one of those things where that was an expensive lesson. I remember, it. Yeah, you can't. It was one of those things where it was like, how far can you push, And the answer is that far. You can push as far as the Secret Service comes to your house and looks for you. On both coasts, they found me in California. Yeah, I like that record a lot. I back the record, but I have a family, and I don't need to play that song again. It got out there.
Yeah.
Sorry.
True punk rock. It doesn't get any realer than that. So off your album, Frank Iero and the Patients, Parachutes, what inspired the lyrics of the song, "Dear Percocet, I don't think we should see each other anymore"?
That's, real life experience. I think that it's very, coming from a line of addiction. Here's the thing. I think that there's certain things that are inherited traits, right? I feel like, depression and addiction and things of these nature, like, sometimes these are, predetermined for you. They're in our DNA, and I know that if I wasn't careful, I could fall really, really fast. And so, when you enjoy something like that too much, it puts a film over you. You can't see what's really important anymore. And so, yeah, that song is about, wanting to be more present and to live in the now and to remember the things that, truly do matter.
And what inspired the song, "I'm a Mess"?
That actually stemmed from a conversation that I had with a young lady at a show. She had gifted me a pin. It was like, it was a Sid Vicious pin, basically, the "I'm a Mess" pin. And we started to talk about, what that meant. And the song is basically directly written about our conversation, about how, oftentimes we think of our shortcomings, or the way that we feel about ourselves, or the way that we act as faults, because people tend to instill in us, like, no, you're not supposed to feel this way, you're not supposed to act that way, and And in actuality, I feel like these faults, these things that we're, maybe scared to show everybody, are really the things that make us so unique. Like the idea that no one is as messed up the way that you're messed up. Like, that's kind of amazing, right? And why should we be sad? Like, why should we be unsure of ourselves about that kind of thing? Like, I think that's that badge of courage. Like, that's who you are. Like, wave that flag and hold that banner. And it's okay to be a mess. Like, we all are. And the people that aren't are fucking lying. Like, I'm sorry, but no one's got it figured out. Like, when you were a kid, you thought your parents had it all figured out, and that made you feel safe. But in actuality, like, no, none of us know what the hell we're doing. We're just trying our best, and we're not going to get it right all the time, and that's okay. So that's what that song's about.
What does the name of your band, The Future Violence, mean?
The idea is, I like to think of life as like this pristine lake. It's reflective, and we're able to kind of sit back and passively enjoy it. Things are happening all around us. You can watch the wind take the current, and the fish swim underneath, and all of that, and be perfectly content. That's a passive way of living. The other way you can do it is to actively participate in a violent action. Say, pick up a stone on the side of the shore and toss it in and kind of just break it up. And watching that ripple go off and changing things, leaving an imprint, a footprint, and having this world be different from before you were here. I think that's maybe the biggest injustice, to be here, live your life, and not have anything change. So the idea is that the band and the people that are listening to this record are those the future violence, the ones that go out and change things, that disrupt it. And I don't think that carries a negative connotation. I think that's a really positive thing. I think it should be shaken up, and I think we should go out there and kind of like wake each other up a bit, and hopefully affect each other and push each other to do the things that kind of scare us the most.
The title of your new album is called Barriers. Right. So define that.
For me, I mean, the personal side of it was we'd gotten in this accident in 2016, and it was a life-changing event. It was one of those things that affected me on a cellular level. Like, I feel like you see death and that close, and you have these this life-changing, this near-death experience. It seeps in and changes your DNA. You become a different person. This is the first record I've written since that, and I knew I needed to address that occurrence, because to not do that would be disservice. And I was having a really hard time doing it. Like, I just, nothing I was saying or writing felt like it was important enough or encompassing all the emotions and stuff that I had about that experience. And so I just kind of put it off, and I was like, maybe I don't know how to do this anymore. Maybe that's something I did like in a past life, but now I don't know how to do it. And so I got a phone call from a few musicians, Tucker Rule, who plays drums in a band called Thursday, and also plays drums in The Future Violence. Matt Armstrong, who played bass in Murder by Death, also plays bass in The Future Violence. My brother-in-law, Evan Nestor, who plays guitar in Celebration, Patience, and all these bands. And Kaylee Goldsworthy, who I'd met around 3 years ago. They were all free to do a record, and we're like, hey, that record that we've been talking about for all this time, like, now's the time, let's do it. And I was like, how am I going to pass this opportunity up, because I can't get over, this accident that happened. So I started to think about that, like, like these barriers that we set up, these roadblocks. Sometimes they're things that are set up to kind of like protect us. Like, we don't want to go that far. We don't want to go there. We don't want to talk about that, or we don't want to experience this thing because it's scary and all that. And I started to chip away at it, and I was like, I'm not gonna let this bus, rip my shoulder apart and take this from me. Like, it's just not gonna happen. It hasn't fully taken my ability to play, so it's not gonna fully take my ability to write a record. And so I as I started to chip away at that and broke that barrier down, like, I was like, oh man, like, that huge thing that seemed so scary, I beat it, or at least dealt with it in some way. I defined it. And if you give something a name, you got control over it, right? So I started to go through the rest of the things in my life that maybe I kind of shied away from, and started to chip away at those. And that's what this record is. It's that journey of, kind of breaking down these barriers and talking about them, putting them out in the open.
I read, and I don't know how long ago this was, is that your arm really got hurt from this, and the doctors actually offered to do a surgery, and your attitude was like, I'm not going to go there.
That's the thing is, the tear that I have, they say, you have to get surgery for. Right now, it's one of those things where I'm in pain, but I can play. You know what I mean? Right now, if I want to play a show, I can go play a show. It sucks to what I feel like afterwards, but I can play. I can play with my kids a little bit. I can't do too much. I can. I'm not like I was, but to push that envelope and get the surgery, I don't know what that's going to be like after. So I know what I feel like now. I'm leery to put it in the hands of anybody else,
So what is your fondest memory of writing and recording the song Best Friends Forever with twin daughters Cherry and Lily off the EP Keep the Coffins Coming?
That's one of the greatest things I ever got to do. I mean, I remember they were really young when we wrote that song together. And the idea that you can be a child and write a song, and we did a video for it when they were really, really small. I just thought that was so cool. And they love it, they're real proud of that, and they should be. I think that all too often we kind of just our kids will do things or make things, and we just kind of, oh, that's cool, and just push it under the rug kind of thing. It's I think celebrating that, and giving them that confidence that they can do anything is important, Yeah.
And then what inspired the cover art with you and your 3 kids wearing black ski masks?
Well, here's the thing. I don't see the need to have to put their faces out on the internet. When they're old enough to do that kind of stuff, they want to have social media or whatever. By all means, that's your prerogative. But I don't know. There's fucking creepy weirdos out there, man. I don't want my kids' faces out there. Nobody needs to see their faces. If you know them and you're in the family and stuff like that, you have their picture. I don't need to put it on the record cover.
Look, I'm solid with that, bro. That's you're taking a stand there. I have seen the live footage of you guys doing a song together. Mm-hmm. I have seen that, and it's pretty intense because your son just will not let go of that microphone.
Yeah. Well, that happened was we were playing the show in Jersey, and they came out to the show, and they were standing on the side of the stage, and the last song came, and I remember looking over, and my daughter started to cry, and I was like, what happened? So I ran over, and I was like, what's wrong? She's like, I thought we were going to be up on stage singing. And I was like, no, I said we were just going to, you guys were going to be on stage, watching the show. She's like, I thought we were going to be on. So I was like, all right, fuck it. And so they came out, and that was the greatest, dude. Yeah, they were so excited. And I'm pretty sure my son, Miles, I don't know, I think he was just yelling piggy, piggy, piggy all over and over again into the microphone, but it worked somehow in the song. I think it was pretty good.
About the song Off Barriers, your new album, 6 Feet Down Under.
So that song is taken directly from a conversation I had with my therapist, court-appointed therapist, after the accident in Sydney. And it's hard, man. You go through these it's weird. You split off into this 3-pronged thought process. One is you're very happy to still be around and get to experience things and be with your family and stuff like that, and that's wonderful. 2, you start to think about, all right, well, I saw death, right? A lot of people, we know it's there, but if we haven't seen it, it's an abstract thought. But to meet it and then walk away from it and know that eventually you're going to meet it again, that's a very daunting thought process. That is kind of twofold with the idea that, well, maybe that was your path and it's been taken from you, kind of thing. It's weird. So it kind of has like a weird survivor's guilt type thing. And then the third prong of it is not really believing that you did make it out. And that's one that is very difficult to get over because no one can tell you what's real and what's not, you know. Is this just what death is? Is it just a figment of your imagination? Does your conscience just go on and create a new world for you? I have no idea. But you start to try to come to terms with things because this is the reality that, you know, you're set in. This is what the cards you've been dealt. I started to think about how if this is all just a figment of my imagination, and I understand how self-centered this sounds, that I've imagined all of you. And I imagined a world where I'm in a comic book store and you're filming me talk about myself. That's weird. But if it is, right, then I'm kind of in charge, right? And I get to make the rules. So I should take as many chances and do all the things that I ever wanted to do because I'd have to be a real idiot to set myself up for failure in that, right? So you become the master of your own destiny, and that's a wonderful thing to think about. Like, everything I want to do, I'm going to do, and it's going to come true, and that's awesome.
How do you think your music has a healing influence on the world today?
I mean, I don't know if it's just my music. I think, you know, art in general does. You know, I think it's something that we can look to for inspiration and for answers, and it's a consoling hug, and it's all of that. You know, it's whatever we need it to be. That's why I think, you know, music and art is just so important because it's open to that interpretation. It can be everything for everyone.
What inspired the lyrics to the song "The Host"?
The Host is a lot about how sometimes when you go out on tour and you choose this life, life kind of goes on without you at home, and it's hard for you to come back and fall back into things with people because sometimes they imagine that you've changed and treat you accordingly, but in your perspective, you're kind of feeling like, why is everybody treating me different? You know what I mean? I just went away. Like, can't we just go back to where we were? And it's a very weird juxtaposition about, following your dreams and are you, you know, and settling. And what does that, you know, what does that feel like? What's right? What's wrong? There is no, it's a gray area.
Madison Square Garden.
Madison Square Garden is about relationships that are terrible for you being the most exciting. Relationships based in addiction and just all out dirty brawls. Those are sometimes the ones that are just. It's like the things that are the worst for you are sometimes the most exciting. I started to think about, like, you know, where would these two titans face off? You know, like almost like the Thrill and Manila kind of thing. Like those two titans of addiction and lust would probably fight in Madison Square Garden. So that's where that came from.
No Love.
No Love is about just that. Just a terrible relationship. Someone that treats you horribly, but you know you would do anything for.
Okay, your new music video is called "A Great Party," right, and this is featuring Surfboard and their singer Danny Miller. What is your relationship with Danny Miller? We're friends. It's funny. I found out about Surfboard a few years ago, and fell in love with them. I thought they were fantastic. They're like one of my favorite new bands. So I went to go see them, and Danny and I, we talked that first night when I went to go see them in Brooklyn. I think at a place called Elsewhere. We ended up playing cornhole together, and we found out that we've never played before, but we're really exceptionally good. So we made a pact that we would never play it again because our power should be used for good, not evil. Anyway, I love their band, and she's a rad human being. So is Sean, the drummer, and you know, when I wrote the treatment for the video, I knew I wanted the video to star our friends, but the only person I really saw like clearly was Danny. I was like,
she needs to be the one that lights the bomb. And she was home and free and down to do it. And so, they came in and killed it. Like, it's the best. It's the best. Yeah, they're great. I love that band.
How did Nirvana, PJ Harvey producer Steve Albini shape the sound of your new record, Barriers?
He will tell you that he is not a producer. He is a sound recording engineer, and he captures the band the way that the band sounds. He wants no hand in coloring that sound or putting his imprint on anything. So basically, I knew that going in. I was lucky enough to be able to work with him in the past. We worked on the EP, Keep the Coffins Coming, a few years ago. And so I knew going into Barriers what to expect and how Steve liked to work. You need to know your band and your songs better than anyone else in the world. If you do a take and you finish that take, there will be silence. And then inevitably, because we're artists and we have a thin skin, we'll go, how was that? And he'll say, I don't know, how was that? And you'll be like, damn it. I need to listen back. And it's one of those things where, like, he forces you in the producer seat. He forces you to be at the helm. And that was a push that I needed. I knew what this record was supposed to sound like. I worked tirelessly on every element of these songs, and so having Steve in that engineer chair, I knew that I could go and chase the tones that needed to be there, and he was just going to be able to capture everything that I put forward. So it's wonderful. I mean, like, when you're in the room with a genius, like, it's apparent. Like, people throw that term around a lot, and it's not always deserved. But with people like Steve, like, whew, it's unbelievable. Like, his knowledge about sound and recording and how to capture that and how, the pace that he works at. I mean, we did 17 songs in 15 days, recorded and mixed live to tape. And no one else is in the studio with him. Like, it's just him. He sets up every mic. He sets up, he lays out every chord. He does every splice edit. I mean, with a razor blade like this, it's Steve. Like, that's it. Yeah. And mixing, like, you mix the song, and then if you want to change something in that song, like, it's not digital. Like, there's no computer. Like, you have to pull it back up and redo everything on faders. It's real time. Like, it's a tedious work. So if you have something that's subpar, like, you're not going to get it done. But I feel very fortunate to have been able to work with him, and it's been a lifelong dream. I think ever since I was like 13 and I heard Surfer Rosa and Jawbreaker and Nirvana, of course. Like, it was like, why do I feel a certain way when I hear all these records? Like, who's making these records that sound like nothing I've ever heard? And it's Steve.
Yeah, he worked with Jimmy Page and Robert Plant on their album, right? I mean, their first time back together, and they picked him.
Insane, right?
Yeah. and I'll be shocked if you tell me you didn't ask him anything about Nirvana or Kurt Cobain. You must have.
There's certain things that he's forthcoming with, and he'll answer whatever question you might have. But it's strange too, where, like, you'll be in the studio and be like, Kim Deal calls him on the phone. And he's got to take that call, like, real quick, because they need a sample or something. Like, something happened and they're on tour, and it's like, oh my god. Like, that's where you get snapped back and you're like, oh shit. The litany of bands and songs that you, like, are Bible that he's done. It's crazy.
So what do you love most about your continuous band member and brother-in-law, Evan Nestor?
It's everything. He's the best, man. I've never met someone that was so pure, and just he's just an amazingly, like, an old, kind soul, and super incredibly talented. Like, that's the thing. Usually you'll find people that are like, oh, he's super talented, but he's a shitbag. Or you'll find somebody like, oh, he's such a nice guy, I just wish he was good at what he does, but whatever, you keep in mind. Like, he's great at everything. He's super smart, and he's just the best to be around. I got really, really lucky. Yeah, I never want to be in a band without him. Like, he's a good luck charm. Plus, he's got, like, have you seen that mane of hair he's got on him?
Yeah.
He's amazing, dude. He's great.
So how did you know Jamia was the one?
I don't know. You just know. It was the second I saw her. It's weird. I'll never forget it. I was that lockout that I shared with my chem. I wasn't in my chem at the time, but I was there, and it was like an off day. I wasn't even supposed to be there. And she showed up to. She was meeting my friend Sean there. They were going to get like decorations for a party or something. And she walked in, and I was so high. I was so high, and I was playing video games. And this girl walked in, and I just looked up, and I couldn't even form a sentence. And it was like, oh man, why did it have to happen now? You know what I mean? It was like one of those. But yeah, we became friends, and maybe a year later, I convinced her that she liked me.
How did you propose?
It was in LA. I took her to Mulholland Drive. And I planned it out. I thought there's this like really nice overlook park on Mulholland that I wanted to take her to and just like kind of like oversee the city. But her flight got delayed and she was really tired and so we got there and the park was closed. It was the perfect. It was just the perfect. It was like we're just gonna stand next to this gate. It was like, you know what though, the idea was there, but it's perfectly imperfect. And guess what? Things aren't always going to work out the way that we want them to, but it doesn't matter because we're here. Like, it's not about anything else. It's not about the setting. It's not about, the day or the time or even the ring, because it was like, I didn't have a lot of money at the time. It was like a silver thing with an elephant on it. And I was like, I don't care. Like, if I don't have, I might not have anything for the rest of my life, but if I can have you, I'll be all right.
How do you feel your children have changed you as a person?
Oh my, they're incredible. I mean, I can't even say how haven't they? Like, everything is different. It's all for them. I mean, they're just the most incredible people I've ever met. I'm astonished that I'm this lucky to get to be their dad, like to be around them and to get to watch them become these amazing people. They have opinions about fucking everything. It's crazy. They're the best, man. They've made me more. They've made me want to be here more.
Do you find comfort in the fact that the Black Parade has sold over 4 million copies worldwide?
True.
Yeah.
Jesus Christ.
As of 2016, the Black Parade has sold over 4 million copies worldwide.
But it's 2019, so it's probably more now?
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Do you find comfort in that?
No, I don't know. Not really. I mean, I don't know. That's cool. That's one of those, like, that's nice to read on a card, or like, you know what I mean, or say, like, someone say that at a party. Like, other than that, like, what does it do for me? Really?
I think a lot of people, it's kind of like once you get to this certain point in your life, I'm sorry, and this is a really sad statement, but once you get to this certain point in your life, you realize all the money in the world is not going to help me. Right. It is not going to make my life better. It is not going to bring me any kind of peace of mind.
Yeah, I mean, here's the thing. It's a very nice accomplishment. It's something that, maybe my kids will hear one day and it'll mean something to them then, and that's cool. Like, but I don't know. If that said 4 copies, would I still be proud of that record? Yeah, absolutely. So the fact that there's a couple zeros on that, like, that's just icing on the cake. I don't care.
Do you like the direction the world's going in today?
Oh God. No, I'm scared.
Do you believe evil exists? And if so, how would you define it?
I do believe it exists. I would define it as ignorance.
What do you love most about connecting with your fans?
How creative they are. I feel very fortunate that they use that creativity sometimes on us. Like, they draw us and write beautiful poetry and letters to us. It's insane. I think that what I love is that it's almost like their training ground to find their own 2 feet in the art world. I think that's amazing.
What is your greatest extravagance?
Gear. I like gear a lot. I like guitars, and I like gear.
If you believed there was a hell, would Hitler be rotting there?
God, I hope so.
If you could collaborate with any living or dead musician, who would it be?
My dad and my grandfather. Yep. Yeah, they're the best. I've gotten to do some songs with my dad. I never got to do a song with my grandfather. I thought that would be amazing.
The pros and cons of social media for you?
Pros, of course, I think are just being able to interconnect and I think see what people are up to on a global scale. I think that's really awesome, like the immediacy of it. The cons, I think, are we don't understand the difference between positive and negative attention anymore. We just crave attention, and I think that's troubling. People just want to be famous. They don't want to be famous for accomplishing something, and I think that's a horrible thing. I think that we've gone too far at that point.
And how important is fame to you, and could you live without it?
150 trillion%. I could live without it. Yeah, it means nothing.
What would you consider your greatest achievement to date?
My kids.
What advice would you give the younger you?
Oh, man. If someone would just come and tell me, like, hey, don't worry so much, it's going to work out, that would be the best. Enjoy it a little bit.
What one life event of yours would you change if you could relive it?
I would not get hit by a bus.
How would you define the word love?
Caring for somebody more than you care for yourself.
What is your greatest fear?
Not being there and spiders.
What would you like your legacy to be?
He was never full of shit.
Cool. If you could fix any one injustice in the world, what would it be?
The Knicks should win a championship.
What comes first, the lyrics or the music?
It depends. Yeah, there's no defined real better way. Sometimes one happens before the other, but when it happens together at the same time, that's the best one.
What brings you the most peace in your life right now?
My kids being happy, writing a good song. Those two at the same time is the best.
What was it like to get the support from the former My Chemical Romance band members at your Troubadour show in 2017?
It's great, man. Like, we get together once or twice a year for like barbecues and stuff like that. Like usually it's if I come to town like and play a show, and then I like to go to Disney with the kids and stuff like that. So we get together a lot. It's not. Here's the thing. We started that band for the right reasons, like because we had this artistic vision and we became friends. And now you go through that band in 12 years. I think at the end of it, like we started to lose the fact that we were friends. And so to have that again is wonderful. Like to be like, oh no, like this is the important thing. That's the best.
Speaking of friends, what's it like touring with Jeff Rickley from Thursday?
I love him. Well, that's the thing. Like so, I get to tour with Tucker too because Tucker, is in the band and now to have Jeffy on, it's amazing. He's so talented. To get to watch him every night, like it's an honor to get to share a stage with Jeffy and Tucker and everybody in the band. But the East Coast tour was James DeWee's opening, who again is somebody else I look up to, and then to have the West Coast opened by Jeffy, I feel very, very fortunate. Like those are two guys that if it wasn't for them, there would be no me. So
what was important about the Warped Tour for you?
It taught me a lot. I think one, just going as a kid, like attending the show, was huge. I remember like my first year going, getting to see Bad Religion, getting to see 7 Seconds, getting to see Anti-Flag, where Chris Barker had like kind of just joined the band. And I remember him like not being much older than me and being like, oh my God, like these are kids like me doing this, And on that year too, there was a local band, New Jersey band called Humble Beginnings, and they won a contest and they opened the show. And they had signed to Eyeball Records, and that set everything in motion for me. It was like, oh my God, this isn't unobtainable. Like I can do this. Like if they can do it, I can do this. And so like that set everything in motion. And then years later, like playing it, being in catering line with like your heroes, like it blew my mind. I learned so much on those tours, and they're not easy tours. Like it was a lot easier to do in my 20s, but I learned so much about grinding it out and what it takes to to really put in the work and do this. And I wouldn't trade those memories and those experiences for the world.
And then what's next for Frank Iero?
I got 2 more dates on this tour, and then I'm off for like a week and a half, which is pretty sick. And then I go to the UK and Europe. We're going to do a co-headliner with my friend Laura Jane Grace and her band, the Devaluing Mothers. Mobina Galore from Canada is going to be opening those shows. It's going to be great. I think it's like 2.5 weeks long. And then we from there we do Riot Fest, and then we do a couple of headliners in Mexico, and then I might take a little bit of time and hang out with my family for a minute.
Frank Iero, it's been great. Thank you for being on the Blairing Out with Eric Blair show, man.
Thanks for having me.
You rock.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
This is the Blairing Out with Eric Blair show with Frank Iero signing off.
The Blairing Out Show.